Most guys want to walk around the pool or on the beach in the summer of 2026 with a defined, chiseled, aesthetic physique, but only a small percentage of men will. If you want to be a part of that small percentage this summer, then stick around this video and I'm going to share with you a fatal fat loss mistake that I've seen hundreds of men make. I'm going to tell you why it happens, and I'm going to tell you what to do instead. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Drew Favre, and my goal with this channel is to help bodybuilding and fitness become simple and fun for the everyday guy. I believe that training and eating properly is supposed to enhance our lives, not take away from it or completely consume it. I also believe that if we've been born healthy and able-bodied, it's a God-given opportunity to enhance our lives with a fitness-based lifestyle, and we shouldn't take it for granted. So when it comes to fat loss, ultimately, what's going to dictate your results is the amount of calories you consume versus the amount of calories that you burn. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to be burning body fat. Around a 500 calorie deficit per day or a 3,500 calorie deficit per week leads to 1 pound of fat loss. Now, of course, there is some minutia in there in regards to your macro breakdown, the micronutrients you're consuming, your rest, and your recovery. All that is important and that affects the total equation, but ultimately it comes down to being in that 500 calorie deficit daily. And the fatal mistake that most men make, that I used to make all the time, and that I don't want you to make in 2026, so you can actually look like the vision you have in your mind right now for this summer, is crushing it 6 days a week, being locked in with a meal plan or tracking their macros every single day, but having a cheat day every single week. Not a cheat meal, a cheat day, where they graze throughout the day with snacks, they have a few cheat meals, they have dessert with multiple meals, and then before you know it, you've completely blown the entire weekly deficit. And I know because I've done it, and it sucks. It's like restarting your momentum every single week. You convince yourself that, oh, I deserve it, or, oh, this is good for me because I've been in a deficit all week. This is going to reignite my metabolism. And it's total BS. That's not how fat loss works, and that's not how metabolism works. I used to have days where I would have a giant breakfast with eggs, pancakes, bacon, and I would finish it off with a chocolate muffin or two. Right there, that was around 1,600 to 2,000 calories just in the morning. And then I would have like a burger and fries for lunch. I would have something sweet after that, maybe a chocolate bar, maybe a cookie. I would snack a little bit in the afternoon because Sundays I would just kind of be chilling. And then for dinner, I would have a big steak, a big juicy ribeye, which there's nothing wrong with ribeyes per se, but I would have a big juicy ribeye. I would have some fries with that, and then I would have ice cream before bed. And I would convince myself that this was actually essential, and I would be unprepared for that Sunday, which is what a lot of guys mess up as well. A lot of guys treat Sunday as the meal prep day. And so I was the same way. I would lock in for 6 days of the week. Sunday would be the meal prep day. I would convince myself I needed a refeed and foods weren't really prepared. And so I would just kind of blow it up on Sunday. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And I want to know down in the comments, what's one of your like craziest cheat days, or what's like your consistent cheat day that you would go to? What I explained to you guys is kind of what I would do consistently when I was stuck in this cycle. So I'm curious, drop it down below in the comments because I want to know. Now, how do you actually break through this cycle and stay consistent with your calorie deficit for long enough to actually see great results? Well, there's two angles that we have to look at this from. There's the tactical angle, which means your training regimen and your nutrition. And then there's the mental portion of things. The mental portion of things is going to be way more important, but if the tactical portion of things is all jacked up, even with the strongest mindset, you're still going to fail. So we're gonna go over the tactical portion of things first that you can do to set yourself up for success with this, and then we're gonna dive into the mindset, which is going to help you crush it and stay consistent with your plan. Basically, how you want to approach your nutrition and your training during a fat loss phase when you're pushing to get leaner and trim off that unwanted fat is to set things up in a way that manages your fatigue, your hunger, your stress, and optimizes your recovery. You shouldn't be living in the gym during a calorie deficit. What I tell the guys in my community is that you should be lifting 3 to 4 days per week. Now, I have some 5-day training programs in there, and you can lift 5 days per week in a deficit, but you have to mitigate and decrease the volume that you're going to do in those workouts to make up for the frequency that you're going to be training. Most guys have the best success with 3 to 4 workouts per week. And the reason this is because as soon as you start overtraining, where you're not fully recovering from your workouts on a day-to-day basis, for one, you start showing up to the gym super fatigued and you're not making any progress in your workouts. You're not progressive overloading, you're going through the motions, even if mentally you're trying really hard. Your muscles aren't getting new stimulus, so you're not actually building any muscle during the process. And then for two, When your body is in this state, you're also going to have increased cravings. Your willpower is going to dwindle down over time, regardless of how disciplined you might think you are. And you're going to end up burning less calories throughout the day because you're going to move less. So lock in 3 to 4 quality workouts a week where you're focused on progressive overload, you're focused on your training intensity, and you're focused on the quality of what you're doing, not the quantity of what you're doing. Then when it comes to your diet, what I highly recommend is following a weekly meal plan. So for week 1, you know, okay, this is what I'm going to be eating on a daily basis. And you want to make this enjoyable. You want to make these meals as filling as possible, and you want to put a little effort into these meals so you actually look forward to eating them. You want them to be enjoyable. And then as the weeks go on, from week 1 to week 2, tweak some things out. If you've been having rice in 2 of your meals, go ahead and swap that out for a different carb source. You can do potatoes, you can do sweet potatoes. Sometimes I'll even swap out rice for like tortilla wraps or maybe some corn tacos. Whatever I need to do to keep things enjoyable and keep myself actually looking forward to the meals. And then you really want to make sure that you're timing your meals throughout the day, that you don't go so long without eating, because if you do, your hunger is going to increase because your stomach is going to get more and more empty. And the less volume that's in your stomach, the more your hunger hormones are going to increase. And when that happens, you're more likely to overdo it in your next meal or just start grazing on some snacks. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I know you know the feeling. I've been there. You've been there too. So time out your meals where every 3 to 4 hours you're eating. So that way you're not letting yourself get super hungry before the next meal. And if you're one of those guys where you're thinking, oh, I could just follow the same meal plan for an entire 90-day cut, I don't need to swap out the meals. I don't need to change things up. I'm telling you, it's the best possible thing you could do to make sure you're always looking forward to your meals. I tell the guys in my community, do not go longer than 1 to 2 weeks following the same meal plan every single day. You're going to burn out. Switch things up, change things out, so that way the diet is actually excitable to you, your meals are good, and you're actually sticking to it. So that's the tactical portion of things that you can do to make sure that by the time you hit the 7th day of the week, you're not completely burnt out, craving a bunch of foods, and give in for a big cheat day. But what about the mental reframe, which, like I told you earlier, is more important? So the first thing you need to remember is that this cutting phase, which I recommend for most people, is to do a 90-day shred. This 90-day shredding phase is a short sprint in the marathon that is your lifelong journey. The level of execution, the discomfort that eventually comes with being in a calorie deficit is not going to be for the rest of your fitness journey. Once you get through that sprint and you get to the physique that you want and you've trimmed off that fat, as long as you reverse out of it correctly, it's much easier to maintain that physique than it is to actually get there. So you have to set this in your mind that, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. This is going to be challenging. There's going to be days where I'm hungrier than I want to be. There's going to be days where I'm a little more fatigued than I want to be. And you just have to push through it as a short-term sprint for the long-term reward that you're going to get. Something else that's going to be incredibly important that you have to think about every single day is your why behind your transformation. Most of us with any interest in fitness have some sort of fitness content coming on our social media. And what ends up happening is we get this spark of inspiration where we think, I want to look like that. And then we just immediately start taking action towards our goals, which is great. Being an action taker is a phenomenal trait to have. But at the same time, when you only have that little spark of motivation, you have a surface level reason for why you're trying to reach your goals, you've never even really thought on a deep level about why this transformation is important to you, eventually, as soon as things start getting hard, you're going to fall off track. So what you need to do before you start your 90-day shredding process is you need to sit down and you need to visualize, first and foremost, exactly what you want to look like at the end of the shred. And most importantly, you need to write down the why behind why this is important to you. And when it comes to the why behind your transformation, I've coached hundreds of guys, and I can tell you through my own process and through all of these men, I've learned that there's 2 angles that you have to cover with your why. And the first is the ego-driven portion of it. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging and embracing a part of the ego portion driven of things. So for me personally, one of the biggest motivators for me is I've been in a committed relationship for 10 years now. Kelsey has seen me completely ripped. She's seen me get a little softer, but overall, I've always been in really great shape. And I've always told her who I wanted to become and who I was going to become. And so for me, the physical shape is a part of the promise that I've made to myself, and it's part of the promises I made to Kelsey. And so I never want to get to the point in my life where I'm not making that continuous progress. And Kelsey just kind of looks at me like, Drew used to really be on it. He used to really be attractive. I used to be drawn to him, but now, he looks okay and I still love him, but that attraction has kind of faded a little bit. I never want that. I always want her to look at me with that same attraction that she did 10 years ago. And so in order for that to happen, I have to lock in. I have to stay focused on my goals. I also want respect from other men, because when you're in great shape, it's a status symbol. There's no denying it. When you have a physique that has a decent level of muscle, low enough body fat for you to see your muscle definition, and you look aesthetic, you look athletic, it's a sign to other men that, hey, I take this shit seriously. I'm disciplined. I'm about mine. I know what discomfort feels like. And that is a subconscious signal in a game that we all kind of play from a purely instinctual level. Now, I'm a Christian myself, so I always do my absolute best to look past that and look to the heart of the person. But there's no denying that our human flesh, that our instincts judge in this subconscious way. And so to deny it in your own fitness journey with your own goals, you're also robbing yourself. And I've always wanted that status symbol, and there's nothing wrong with you wanting it as well. So you have to think about your angles. What are your ego-driven motivators for wanting to reach these goals? But then there's also the next layer of it, which is more important. And I call this your intangible impact. So first and foremost, intangible impact is kind of like two separate things that are intertwined. So the first portion of intangible is, how are you going to feel? What is your day-to-day quality of life going to be like? What's your longevity going to be like? Are you going to be healthy when you're older? All of these are intangible, but then you also have your intangible impact. And this is how you affect others around you. So when you're in great shape, you're locked in, your mindset is on point, you're crushing it with your nutrition, you're crushing it with your training, and people can see it, your energy is up, you're infectious, you're inspiring others around you, and you never really know that level of impact that you're having. And so you have to think about people outside of yourself in order for this to stick as well. Do you have a family that you want to lead with a proper lifestyle? Do you have coworkers that you want to see live their best life and have them be healthy, have them be in shape, and have them have physiques that they're proud of? You have to have something. It can just be one person, but you have to have somebody outside of yourself that is driving you to stay consistent with this in order for this to stick. Every single guy in my community that crushes it, that I've had conversations with, and I asked them like, hey, why did you even get started in the community in the first place? What was the spark for your transformation? They all had both layers of this. They had the ego-driven layer, and they had someone or multiple people outside of themselves that was driving them to want to transform. And you have to have that as well. So if you pair this mindset with a proven plan with your nutrition and training, you're going to see incredible results. But it takes both. So I highly recommend journaling every single day to focus on your mindset and following a proven plan. It doesn't have to be a plan from me. You don't need to join my community, but find a coach or an influencer that has proven transformations in a proven process that you trust and commit to one of their plans. You need to have something that you're locked in and focused on without all the second guessing and just, okay, this is what I'm gonna be doing for this next phase of my fitness journey. The truth is, there's a lot of coaches out there who have proven processes, and I would never sit here and say that my community and my process and my plans are the only way to get to your goals, because that isn't true. But what I can tell you is that if you join my community, you're going to have everything you need to completely transform your physique. So if you're interested in learning more about my community, you can click the link down below in the description. There's a 7-day free trial, and after that, it's literally less than $5 a week. So click that link down below in the description if you're interested. I look forward to seeing you in the community, and I'll see everybody in the next video.